welcome to Learning Freedom. I'm Rachael Plant. So you might have been considering home education for a while. You're wondering if that is going to be the right route for you as a family, and your child is coming up to compulsory school age. So how do you start homeschooling a 5-year-old? So if you've already applied for a school place, I'm talking about the UK here, if you've already applied for a school place but you've decided that you don't need that place, then all you need to do is contact the admissions team at your local education authority, and just you can do it by email and just tell them that you don't require a place, and that's it. You don't even have to say that you're home educating. You just, if they're under 5, they haven't quite reached compulsory school age yet, then that's all you need to do. If you didn't apply for a place and you know you're all set to start home educating, homeschooling, but you're wondering how to go about it, this is what I'm going to talk about in this video. So obviously we are all different. We all have different ideas about educating and what we want our children to learn and the ways in which we want them to learn. And also our children have very different needs and abilities, and so obviously it isn't a one-size-fits-all with home education. This is the beauty of it. It is very flexible and responsive to the needs of you and your child, and and you as a family unit. So if you want to, so firstly, you don't need to follow the national curriculum. If you want to follow the national curriculum, of course you can, and there are resources online to be able to do that, but there is no obligation as a home educator to follow what they're doing in school. You don't have to replicate it in any way. Many home educators do like to follow a curriculum, like maybe Steiner education or Montessori or Charlotte Mason. There are lots of different approaches and curriculums out there if you want to have a look into doing that and to have a structure to be able to follow. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did when my daughter was 5. She's 8 now, and I'm a single mum and I work part-time, and I fit in home educating her around, I fit in the work around home educating her actually. We managed to make it work. So when she was 5, the stuff that we did together was still very play-based. I've made a video about home educating a 3-year-old, and that was all very sensory-based and play-based, and lots of craft activities, lots of creative learning opportunities. And that continued really when she was 5. I did at that point introduce some phonics work. I was a teacher before I had my daughter, and I had lots of resources for teaching phonics. But my daughter was quite resistant, and she did pick up basic learning skills, phonics skills, C, B, C, words, dog, cat, pig, etc. But she was really resistant to being taught to read, and so I just left it alone. Because I didn't want to have to sit down with her and have her being resistant and kind of huffing and puffing and not engaged. Like, I can tell when my daughter is engaged in something and she really wants to do it, and I can tell when she doesn't. And it feels really like lacking in joy for both of us and lacking in purpose if she is struggling. I'm struggling to teach her, she is resisting what I'm trying to teach her. It doesn't work for us. So I leave it alone. If she's not into it, we don't do it. Now, I did do that with reading at 5, and by 7 and a half, she was reading fluently without having had any intervention from me, any input from me. So she did have a reading app, which is the Teach Your Monster to Read app, and but she wasn't doing that religiously. If she had a bored moment, she would maybe have a go on it, and weeks would pass between her going on that and doing it. But we have in our house, we have a very literate environment. You know, I love books. You know, she was around books. We have bookcases full of books. She was around books from being a baby. I used to read to her. She used to, you know, interact with the books, and so, you know, just being around that kind of environment, it's almost as if it happened by osmosis. I don't know the process in which she acquired the reading skills that she has, and there's no definitive research on this about how children can you know, just acquire reading skills without being taught to read. But anecdotally, it does happen. You know, with my child, and I know with many other home educated children, when they're developmentally ready to be able to crack the code, you know, to be able to decode books, then it happens. It just happens. And now she, you know, she can pick up Harry Potter, for example, a chapter book, and she can read it fluently, you know, with expression and fully understanding what she is reading. So yeah, so what we were doing more of when she was 5, we would read books. We would, you know, I would read books to her, and then we would use those as the stimulus for other activities. You know, like arts and craft. Well, a whole range of things. That's mainly our thing, arts and crafts. You know, we like to do things like that. We're both creative. But, you know, and I can give you an example. The Tiger Child, that was a book she really enjoyed when she was around that age. It's like a traditional Indian folk tale. And as a result of that, we researched tigers and the habitat and life about India, and you know, there was lots of offshoots from reading the story, and it also led to like drama activities, reenacting the story and adapting the story and retelling the story, so literacy activities as well. So yeah, that's how I mainly did it with my daughter. We had lots of meetups with other families, other home educating families, often outdoors. We got out in nature a lot of the time. We did lots of activities based around nature, and yeah, and just allowing the children to play together, to communicate, and to explore their environment. That's how we did it, age 5. Now, you know, it's a little bit controversial that in the UK the education of children does start so early. It's I suppose it's the same in the US as well, but in other countries, Germany, Scandinavia, children don't enter into formal education and learn to read until they're 7. So it's really quite early in the UK, and personally I don't feel necessarily, and every child is different. There are children that learn to read or fluently at 3 or 4, but personally I think for most children it's probably too young, and that if you allow your child to to be familiar with literature, to be interacting with it, but not forcing phonics work or to learn to read, then it does. They do absorb it because they are learning all of the time. They are absorbing things from their environment all of the time. So yeah, I think that's the main crux of what we were doing when she was 5. I've written a free guide if you are thinking about starting homeschooling. It's called Thinking of Homeschooling, 5 Frequently Asked Questions. So this covers, is it legal to home educate in the UK, and all the the legalities around that. Do you have to follow the national curriculum, and going into it a bit more depth than I've spoken about here. How do you socialise your child? How do they make friends? oh yeah, how do you combine working and homeschooling if you need to do that? And what about GCSEs? You know, being around the home ed world for the past 7 or 8 years, I've encountered these questions time and time again. These are the questions that people want to know the answers to when they're thinking about homeschooling. So it's a guide that I've put together. It's also got links to places where you can get support, like the Facebook groups, which is where there's a lot of information and support from both national groups and local groups, and where you can arrange to meet up with other home educating families and make friends for your children. And there's also a website there as well, which is also full of really up-to-date good information, and it's written by other home educating parents. So if you want that free guide, you can click on the link in the comments, and if you want to see more content around homeschooling and all that involves, then like and subscribe.